Be loud. All right. Good morning, everyone. So a couple of quick things to get started today. Make sure you're signing up for your presentations. Okay, so there's only a few signups so far. So if you come to your class, that sign up sheet should be in week 13. It should say schedule for presentations. Just click on that. And you need to sign up for a time and a date during the lab. Okay. So it'll be during our lab time. If these times do not work for you, um, then please set up a scheduled meeting with me and we can discuss it. Okay. So there's only a few people that have actually signed up. So a lot of them have already taken the last day for presentations, which is December 10th. Um, and the rest, I mean, the first presentations start this month, so you need to start signing up now. Okay. Um, yeah. So please make sure someone's signing up already, or someone's already on here. So yeah, just please. Oh, Lucia. Yeah. So please make sure that you're getting to this. Okay. And you're signing up. All right. So that is that. Also, assignments are going to be opened up again. Um, and I know that's been getting a few complaints about having the assignments not open or close before students are aware. So I'm kind of giving everyone, that extra time, and I'm gonna, attribute that to COVID. I know everyone's didn't sign up for online class or they weren't expecting it, so I'm going to be giving you an extra time on your assignments. All right, and I'll be opening that up. If there's an assignment that you are having trouble with, please let me know. I've already had a few students kind of tell me that they've had issues with some of the lab assignments. So I will be opening them all up for you to complete, and you'll have till the end of November to finish or to retry on some of these assignments, okay, to earn full points. Um, so I'll be going through that. If you have any questions, please email me, okay? I know a lot of people are not watching the recording, so please watch the recordings. I know that sounds redundant giving the information on the recordings, but I'll send an email out soon. I've also sent a couple of emails out saying that I'll be opening up the uh, the assignments again. Okay, especially the ones that are found on Canvas. Right, there's a couple of assignments that are on Canvas that you should have done as well. Um, right, the translation homework. Okay, that's a big one that a lot of people did not do. There's also exam questions that I had. Okay, let me look for them. Exam question. So this one, exam essay question. So this one was big. Okay. So if you didn't know, the last exam that I had, all the questions were on here. I gave you the verbatim, the exact same questions on the exam were the exact same questions I gave you on the homework. Okay. So some of you did very well on the last exam. Others struggled, but just a heads up, these were the exact same questions that I gave you. Okay. So I gave you the free response questions um that week that you had the exam. So if you completed the questions, you would have been very well prepared for the exam. I think there was even some people that copied down the numbers that they had on their homework and copied and pasted that onto the exam, which it's probably not the don't not the best thing, okay? But they were literally the exact same questions, okay? And if you had just watched the recordings, I even said I was going to pick one or two of these to put on the exam. I picked all of them. So if you just went through the homework and you completed the homework, you probably would have done well in that exam. Okay, like the last exam. So if you just listened to the recordings, and you went back and you actually did the homework, you would have been very well prepared for the exam. Okay. I gave you plenty of time on these, and you should have completed them. Yeah. So um, if you haven't done the homework or you haven't done these essay questions, I recommend doing them. Okay, five quick points. So get that done as well. You do also have an exam due. Okay, so the exam is due today at 11:59 p.m. So it is 100 points. It's all multiple choice. Okay, all multiple choice. Right. Chapters 16, 17. So remember 16 and 17, it's going to be very little of these two chapters and much more of 21, 22, 23, and 24. Okay. So you have 90 minutes for 50 questions. Okay. And you do have an extra credit question. So please study. Please get that done tonight if you haven't done so already. All right. And then one more thing. Term paper. Okay. So the term paper is going to be due December, I believe 12th. Yeah, December 12th or 10th, sorry. 12/10. So December the 10th. Okay? So you should be getting those done. Please look at the rubric and the grading with that. Remember that presentation is going to be on the same topic as your paper, okay? And you're going to have to submit the term paper on Turnitin. So what I recommend is that you submit the paper a couple days in advance to see the plagiarism percentage, okay? If it's too much, if it's over 30%, then you're going to have another chance to resubmit. Okay, so I'm going to give you an opportunity to go back and see those revisions. If you need help fixing your paper, I will go ahead and take a look at the paper and look at the lines that have high plagiarism marks, and I'll go ahead and send that over to you so you can see that and address those issues. Okay, so my recommendation: the paper is not very long, so you should be able to get that done and submit. Okay. Um, if you have any questions about that, please email me as well. Okay. Um, again, this is a science topic of your choice that you're going to write your paper on and then you're going to have a presentation on. I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions. Okay. So please make sure that you fill out that assignment that was due earlier in the semester with your topic. Okay. I'm going to reopen this as well. It's just paper topic, I think. Essay exam questions there. It says paper topic, I think. Where's it at? It's somewhere. I'll look for that again. But if you haven't, oh, here it is, paper topic. So I'm gonna extend this all the way to November 30th. Okay. All right. So if you haven't uploaded your paper topic yet, go ahead and do that. Okay, because I need to know what you're gonna be presenting on the day that you have your presentation. Okay. So make sure you get all that done, you address it. Okay. All right. So start with chapter 26. Okay. Oops. Human reproduction. Okay, so it's chapter 26. So sexual reproduction. Again, sexual reproduction is the creation of genetically distinct offspring by fusion of two haploid cells forming a diploid zygote. The whole purpose of sex is genetic recombination. Okay. So we talked about mitosis versus meiosis. Remember, mitosis happens in your somatic cells. So somatic cells are all your other cells except your gametes, right? So we talked about the eggs and the sperm of humans, right? Those are our gametes. Okay, those are going to have meiosis occurring rather than mitosis, right? Meiosis gives you haploid cells, genetically different haploid cells. Okay, and the whole purpose of that is to have genetically variant offspring, right? So potentially have more potentially have or more likely to survive having different traits. Okay, shuffled around, right? The whole purpose of sex is genetic recombination. Okay, so fertilization is a union of a haploid sperm cell with a haploid egg cell producing a zygote. Okay, a zygote is a fertilized egg which is diploid that results from the union of of haploid gametes, so sperm and egg, during fertilization, which we'll look at in a minute. Okay, we'll look at the sperm fertilizing the egg and seeing the implantation, and then the 3 trimesters of pregnancy as well. Okay, um, so variation is the raw material of evolution by natural selection, right? So variation is incredibly important, right? We want variation in a population. Okay, variation allows for certain different uh, um, individuals of that species to survive during a stressful event, right? So think if a virus comes around. I'm using virus. It seems like the best, most appropriate um, example at the moment, right? If a virus comes around and wipes out a portion of fish, right? There's going to always be that genetically variant uh, uh, individual of those fish species that are going to survive that specific virus. Okay, not all the fish will die from that virus. Even um, the viruses that are incredibly potent, right? There's Ebola, there's rabies is incredibly potent. I don't think there's anybody in the history. There's probably, I think, one person in recorded history that has survived from the rabies virus. Okay, but there's always going to be those 1 or 2 people that will survive, whereas everyone else may or may not pass away or be severely affected by that virus. Same thing with variation among offspring if they're exposed to harsh environments, right? There's going to be certain individuals in that species that might be more likely to survive a cold or a warming in their environment. Okay, whereas others are not going to be as fit. So this variation in a population provides that mechanism to help certain individuals survive better than others. Okay, this sexual reproduction is sexual mix-up. Okay. So remember, sex cells are different than somatic cells. They undergo meiosis rather than mitosis. Okay. So a gonad is an animal sex organ that produces gametes, an ovary or a testis. Okay. So male reproductive anatomy. We have a penis, the structure in male mammals that functions in sexual intercourse, a prepuce, a fold of skin covering the head of the clitoris or the penis. So this is essentially going to be the foreskin. Okay. And there is a foreskin-like anatomy on a female as well, the covering or the hood of the clitoris. Okay. Testis. This is a male gonad in an animal. The testis produces sperm and in many species reproductive hormones. Okay, so the testosterone, okay, or androgen, what we call them. Scrotum. This is a pouch of skin outside the abdomen that houses a testis. The scrotum functions in cooling the sperm, thereby keeping them viable. Right. So males will actually have this scrotum that allows for the testicles to hang outside of the body. In colder weather, they contract, so they pull the testicles closer to the body to warm them. In warmer weather, the testicles actually, or the scrotum actually relaxes or loosens and allows the testicles to hang away from the body, right? Cooling them essentially. Sperm needs to be a little bit cooler than body temperature in order to survive and function properly. Okay. So the scrotum is very important. Also, the scrotum is a very tough skin as well. Okay. It's very impermeable, or it's very resistant to penetration in comparison to your other skin. Okay, and again, it's just to protect your testicles. You don't want to, damage the testicles. That skin will provide some extra protection. So, a testicle is a structural component of a male reproductive system consisting of a testis and a scrotum. Okay. All right. So, ejaculation, the expulsion of sperm containing fluid, semen from the penis. Okay. We'll talk about sperm in a minute. Vas deferens. This is a part of the male reproductive system that conveys sperm away from the testis. The sperm duct in humans, the tube that conveys sperm between the epididymis and that common duct that leads to the urethra. Okay, so this is typically what's severed or cut during during male, I don't want to say sterilization, but this is that the tube that when they say the males get their testicles snipped if they're getting fixed, right? They'll go in and actually snip this tube, and this will prevent the sperm from reaching the urethra. Okay, so essentially sterilizing that individual. Okay, so this is what actually gets snipped during. Why can't I think of the proper term for it? When the male gets snipped. I'll think of it right now. I think it's just early. All right, so prostate gland. This is a gland in human males that secretes an acid neutralizing component of semen. So this prostate gland and what is it, the bulbal urethral gland? These glands, there's a couple of glands that produce the majority of the fluid that's found in the ejaculation or the semen. Okay, so prostate gland will be containing the majority of the fluid, right? The sperm makes a very, very small percentage of that. Okay, um, so it's important to note that the majority of the fluid of the ejaculation during the ejaculation of the semen actually comes from the prostate gland. Okay, and it's important to kind of maintain and help lubricate the sperm during their travels in the vagina, right? So ensuring that there's lower pH or I'm sorry, higher pH, so it's acid neutralizing, as well as there's a nice lubrication for that sperm to swim. Okay. The urethra is a duct that conveys urine from the urinary bladder to the outside the body. And in the male, the urethra also conveys semen out of the body during ejaculation. So one common duct, right? So the vas deferens can innervate the urethra as well as the bladder innervates the urethra, right? Both exit out the same hole in males. Excuse me. All right. So semen, the sperm containing fluid that is ejaculated by the male during orgasm. Okay. So this is going to be that fluid that's going to contain the sperm as well as this fluid from the prostate and other glands or the bulbal urethral, bulbal urethral gland. And again, the majority of that fluid does come from that prostate. Okay. Very little of it is actually sperm. Okay. So the color blue highlights erectile tissue. Some non-reproductive structures are also labeled in italics to help keep you oriented, right? So here we have the seminal vesicle, we have the sperm duct, and here we have the prostate, which you see can be secreting various different fluids or uh, um, acid neutralizing fluid for the semen or the sperm to help swim, and also neutralizing the vagina's acidic pH to help the sperm survive. So here we have the vas deferens. This is what will be snipped right during male sterilization, right? So again, you see here the testicle and then the epididymis, which will store the sperm, and then you have the vas deferens where you have the sperm traveling into the seminal vesicle, which will be helping with the ejaculate, as well as the prostate will be helping with the ejaculate there, producing that fluid that'll be coming out of the urethra, right? So here you have the bladder. So you see the urinary bladder does innervate right here through the prostate. So many times you see males developing issues with their prostate. They have trouble urinating, right? That's because typically the prostate will be swollen and it'll start pinching off this tube here that leads to the bladder, right? And if you have this swelling or the pinching or the impingement of that tube, then you have the inability to pass urine um, adequately. Okay. There are a couple of tubes that help with the erection. Okay. So you do have this tube that fills with blood when the male is excited, right? And you can damage this tube too. So a lot of people think, or I hear a lot of questions, it seems like in my general bio class, where the students will ask, well, is there a bone? And no, it's actually these tubes that are filled with blood. And again, that's why they have erectile dysfunction pills, such as Viagra. I think there's like generic Viagra now. I know that they lost their claim, but again, it's going to help with that blood flow to help the erection occur. Okay, there is certain types of male enhancement surgeries for elongation of the penis as well, And typically what occurs here is they actually cut away this tube from the back that of this area here, where they actually can rip out that tube and elongate the penis. But again, the elongation surgery typically affects the angle of the penis as well. So you'll have that, instead of it being straight up, because typically you'll have the erection being straight up, and that's anatomically efficient for sex, right? Whereas if you have this surgery, you may not have that same angle, right? Because you're actually ripping out this tube and elongating that. Okay. Again, here are the glands of the penis, and here's the urethra falling out of the penis. This is where all the sperm and urine will come out, either during ejaculation or during urination. Okay. And this is just showing the same anatomical structures here. You do have the vas deferens, you have the testicle, the epididymis here. Getting the vas deferens is going to be what's cut. That bladder and the vas deferens through the seminal vesicles will be innervating at the same point in the prostate. Okay, where again the prostate, you'll have a lot of prostate problems with males typically as they get older. This is one of those special organs that males only have, right? But they do provide a lot of issues for the male, typically later in life. You'll have prostate cancers, swelling of the prostate. Prostate later on in life for males usually is problematic. Okay, it's just one of those things. Okay, very, very common to develop cancers later in life. All right, so female reproductive anatomy. So vagina, this is a part of the female reproductive system between the uterus and the outside opening. The birth canal in mammals, the vagina accommodates the male's penis and receives sperm during copulation. Okay, hymen, this is a thin membrane that partly covers the vagina opening in the human female and is ruptured by sexual intercourse or by vigorous activity. Clitoris, an organ in the female that engorges with blood and becomes erect during sexual arousal. Ovary, in animals, the female gonad, which produces egg cells and reproductive hormones. Okay, follicles, a cluster of cells surrounding, protecting, and nourishing a developing egg cell in the ovary. The follicle also secretes estrogen. Okay, and that will be important for the menstrual cycle in females. Okay, again, the vagina, low pH. Again, it houses a very specific type of microflora. And again, that microflora needs to be maintained. Okay. So many times you see issues in the vagina if you have pH changes, either up or down. So again, it's very important that you're not taking antibiotics habitually. You are not using special products to curb the microbial growth, right? They have certain types of wipes or creams that women can use in order to help with yeast infections or bacterial infections. And again, typically those aren't the best. So you should go see your doctor. I've seen many times where you have bacterial vaginosis or yeast infections, and it can be caused by either the antibiotics or the creams or the different ointments that women can use. Okay, so it's very easy to develop a dysbiosis in the vagina, and again for a plethora of different reasons. Okay, a hymen, again, it can be broken during intercourse, but many times through physical activity. Okay, so it's not always going to be intact. Okay, many times it is broken during physical activity. So if a woman plays sports or she's in a high contact sport, again, you could rupture the hymen that way as well. Clitoris, this is analogous to actually the penis glands. Okay, so this is almost the same exact architecture as that. Okay, so yeah, they're analogous, right? The stimulating organ in a male is a penis, whereas in a female is a clitoris. They found that there's much more nerve endings found in a clitoris than there is in a male penis as well. Okay, and then we'll talk about ovary and follicles in a minute. Okay, ovulation. This is a release of an egg cell from an ovarian follicle. Corpus luteum is a small body of endocrine tissue that develops from an ovarian follicle after ovulation. The corpus luteum secretes progesterone and estrogen during pregnancy. Excuse me. So after the fertilization event, this progesterone and estrogen secretion is going to help, again, change that body and curve that woman's body in response to geared towards pregnancy rather than expulsion of the egg or the shedding of the uterine wall during the menstrual cycle, okay, or menstruation, right? So these hormones will prevent menstruation from occurring. Okay, they'll curb the female body in order to prepare for pregnancy and harboring a child rather than menstruation. Okay, oviduct. This is a tube that conveys eggs away from an ovary, also called a fallopian tube. Uterus. In the reproductive system of a mammalian female, the organ where the development of the young occurs, the womb. Okay, this is where the fertilized egg or the zygote implants into the wall of the uterus and then eventually will develop and grow. Endometrium, excuse me, this is the inner lining of the uterus in mammals, richly supplied with blood vessels that provide the maternal part of the placenta and nourish the developing embryo. Okay. Oops. So an embryo is a stage in the development of a multicellular organism. In humans, a stage in the development of offspring from the first division of the zygote until body structures begin to appear about the ninth week of pregnancy. Okay. The fetus is a developing human from the ninth week of pregnancy until birth. The fetus has all the major structures of an adult. Cervix, this is a narrow neck at the bottom of the uterus, which opens into the vagina. Okay. And this is what's typically checked for HPV. Okay, so cervix, typically what you'll have is the exposure to genital warts in that region, and this is where it can provide those issues for, again, cervical cancers. Okay, so this is where you have that the HPV vaccine, right? I think they're not as like publicly promoting that anymore, but again, if you are of those ages, those early ages, it's a good idea to go and have the HPV vaccine administered. Again, it's so common. HPV is so common. It's just so much easier to go in and receive the vaccine than later on dealing with a severe HPV infection leading to cancers of the cervix. Okay, so this is what you go in to get a Pap smear for. Females go in to get a Pap smear for. They go and they check for STIs, but they also check that the cervix for irregular growths or regular cells. Okay. All right. So the female anatomy, we have the ovary and oviduct, right? So here we have the follicle and that the tube. Okay. This is a uterus. Here, this is where the implantation occurs. It gets much larger, right? If it's accommodating a baby. This is a cervix. Okay. So the cervix, again, this is where we have issues with HPV. Okay. And this is where the physician will go in. Your OB will go in, open up the vagina, and look and visually look at the cervix and actually scrape. So we'll go in with the swab and scrape. Okay. So again, this is what will get scraped. This is that uncomfortable feeling that most women will associate with the scraping. Okay. This is a vaginal opening. Again, this is going to have a certain pH, so an acidic pH to accommodate the microorganisms there. Again, the close proximity to the anus means there's a lot of flora from the anus found in the vagina. Okay, so it's very important that you kind of make sure that you're having proper care, proper wiping procedures during defecation. Okay, so there early on, women get taught you don't want to wipe back to front again to ensure that you're not producing or having large amounts of microflora from your colon inhabiting your vagina. So you do see some more UTIs in females than you do males for this reason, right? There's just a lot more microorganisms present there. Not that it's a bad thing; it's completely normal. But again, you're much more likely to develop a UTI. Again, the urethra also is a very small duct compared to a male, so you have a much more likelihood of having a bladder infection or even a kidney infection. Okay. Um, so again, this is why they tell women after sex, make sure you urinate, right? Because during copulation, you may have the introduction of different microorganisms due to the fluids going everywhere, and the introduction to the urethra, right? So urinate after you have sex. It's the best thing to ensure that the microorganisms don't make it to your bladder and cause a urinary tract infection. Okay. Um, Yeah, so urine, again, sterile. It's going to help flush away those microorganisms to ensure that you don't have the growth or the infection occur. Okay. All right. So you have the clitoris, you have the shaft and the glands. Again, this is going to be analogous to the male penis, right? So it'll be at the very top of the vagina, so just above the vagina and the urethra. You have labia majora, labia minora. Okay, so at the top and on the bottom, and that will be kind of covering the vagina to cover the openings of the urethra as well as the vagina. So again, males, if you didn't know, there's two separate openings. Women do not urinate from their vagina. They urinate, again, if they have a urethra. Okay, so two separate holes. Okay, which women probably already know. Okay, I'm just saying it out, saying it for the men. Okay, so again, urinary bladder, urethra, then you have the vaginal opening. It's going to lead to the cervix as well as the uterus. Okay, so different, right? You have your renal system here, your kidneys, your bladder, your urethra, and then you have your reproductive organs just below that. Okay, all right. Here's another diagram showing the uterus as well as cervix and the fallopian tube and the ovaries. Again, here the ovaries. You have the corpus luteum. This will secrete the egg into the fallopian tube of the oviduct. Typically, what you have is the fertilization occurring in the oviduct, and then the implantation will happen in the uterus. Okay. So the follicles, again, will help secrete or produce or dump the egg off into the oviduct, which then it can actually be reached by a sperm and be fertilized. Okay. So the sperm does have to make it all the way up. Okay. You can have improper implantation as well, which is not okay. That can be an issue too. Some women do suffer from cysts as well, and you can have this cyst form in the ovary, right? And those can definitely rupture, and that can be a problem, right? You don't want those rupturing. You can lose blood. There can be a lot of issues associated with that as well. Okay. Women may have heard of hysterectomy as well, or I can't think of it right now. Not MS. Why am I thinking of MS? I'm not thinking of MS. Endometriosis. Sorry. So endometriosis as well. So you see people with endo. It's very difficult to diagnose, but endo essentially or endometriosis is going to be the spreading of the. I guess it's kind of hard to say what type of tissue it is. So it's going to be the spreading of the uterine tissue, uterine cells throughout the body. Okay, so sometimes you'll see these women will have severe pain systemically throughout their body during their menstrual cycle. Okay, it's not just in the uterus; it's everywhere in the body. So the endometriosis, again, it's going to be displaced uterine cells throughout the body, which can be quite nasty. Okay, it's not a very easy thing to live with. Okay, from my experience, and the individual I've known with endometriosis, it's a very difficult life to live. Right. Again, it's from the uterine cells displaced throughout the body. So think of this: if a woman is suffering during her menstrual cycle, um, her uterus may hurt. There may be the shedding of the wall and uh, the loss of the lining during menstruation. Well, this is happening throughout her body now. If the woman does have endo, right, those cells are going to be responding to the hormones just like her uterus is, but those cells are going to be distributed throughout the body, which can be quite difficult to deal with. Okay, so that's endo and then uterus. Okay. All right, so gametogenesis. Gametogenesis is the formation of gametes within the gonads. Spermatogenesis is the formation of sperm cells in the testis. Okay, oogenesis, formation of egg cells within the ovaries. Okay. Ooh, excuse me. Again, think of meiosis occurring. So in the testicle, this occurs automatically. Okay, and this is going to be continuously occurring. Okay, so you have the testicle, again, producing multiple different sperm cells. Again, 2N goes into 4N. Again, you do have meiosis occurring. You also have genetic recombination, right? We also have crossing over occurring as well. Okay, so each sperm cell is genetically different from all of the sperm cells, right? We have the recombination event. And this occurs in the testicle, and the sperm is stored in the epididymis. Okay, so you can barely see that image there, but the epididymis is going to be that little spongy tissue that's on the surrounding the testicle. Okay, so the process takes about 65 to 75 days in the human male. Okay, so you can run low. Okay, so it's not continuously, well, it is continuously occurring, but you can definitely lose stock of that semen after a while. Okay, oogenesis. So oogenesis starts before birth. So females, you will have all the eggs you will ever have at birth. Okay, which seems kind of sad, but you have a lot of eggs, so don't worry until menopause. Okay, so which is menopause is just the stopping of the egg production. Okay, stopping of your menstrual cycle. Okay, so this occurs before birth, right? The 2N cells will go into gametogenesis or gamete production before. Okay, so when you're a child. Right, so you have a primary oocyte within the follicle, growth of the follicle, mature follicle, and then you have the rupture out of the corpus luteum. Okay, so this is a follicle and it leaves out the ovary. Okay, so here we have the secondary oocyte being released during ovulation. So ovulation is that event typically 2 weeks before your period, or the shedding of the uterine wall. So 2 weeks before that, you have an ovulation event occurring, right? And you may have heard individuals say, "Well, I'm ovulating and I'm trying to have a baby, so it's time to, have sex and try." Okay, and the ovulation event is during that secretion of the egg. Okay, that the leaving of the secondary oocyte from the ovary, right, escaping that follicle, the ruptured follicle. Okay, and this corpus luteum will be secreting hormones in order to promote that growth of the egg. And again, the eggs are going to be housed in that ovary, and again, the you'll see that follicle rupture, and then you have that ovulation event. And when a woman is ovulating, this is a prime time to have sex and fertilize that egg. Okay, because it's out in the fallopian tube, ready to go and ready to receive that sperm. And again, even if the woman is not ovulating, you can still get pregnant, right? If the male has left sperm inside the female, that sperm can hang out there for a couple days and wait until this secondary oocyte finally leaves the ovary, and then boom, it'll fertilize the egg. So it doesn't. I'm gonna put this out there and say you don't have to be ovulating in order to get pregnant. Okay, just like there have been cases where women get pregnant even after right after they have their period, right? So it's dependent. Okay, it's not nothing's 100%. Everyone has different bodies, so we'll talk about different mechanisms of contraception, and one of them is timing. Right, there's a calendar where you time out your periods in order to not get pregnant. Right, you have sex at the beginning or end of a menstrual cycle, or before a menstruation or after menstruation, in order to not get pregnant, to avoid the ovulation period, avoid sex during ovulation. But this may not be 100% either. Okay. So the female reproductive cycle in females, a reoccurring series of events that produces gametes, makes them available for fertilization, and prepares the body for pregnancy. So ovarian cycle is hormonally synchronized cyclic events in the mammalian ovary, accumulating in ovulation. Okay. Menstrual cycle, the hormonally synchronized cyclic buildup and breakdown of the endometrium of the uterus in preparation for a possible implantation of an embryo. The reproductive cycle is a good example of the importance of interactions, in this case, among the nervous, endocrine, and reproductive systems that control bodily functions, right? And we talked about the endocrine system last week, right? Being very important with development, sexual maturation, and then now we see hormones regulating the reproductive cycle as well. Estrogen and progesterone, to be exact. Those two hormones are going to be playing off of each other during the menstrual cycle. Okay. So here we have the reproductive cycle of the human female. Excuse me. Ugh. So again, hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary. Remember, the anterior pituitary is going to have all of those hormones that are secreted that kind of control the whole body. So you have follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Okay. So follicle stimulating hormone bumps when you have the luteinizing hormone peaking. So this peak triggers ovulation and corpus luteum formation. So here you have in the ovary, you have the egg, you have the growing follicle, the maturation, and ovulation. Corpus luteum again is going to secrete progesterone and estrogen to kind of help that ovulation event continue. Right. This progesterone and estrogen mimics pregnancy. Okay, this is keeping the body ready, the female body ready for the implantation of that egg into the uterus. Okay, so this is kind of maintaining the uterine lining while the egg comes out of the ovary and potentially meets sperm in the oviduct. Okay, so corpus luteum. So there are birth control methods that emulate this. Okay, while there is birth control methods that just have estrogen. Okay, so there's progesterone and estrogen birth control, which either can be the pill form, or you can have now the implanted device, or you can have just the estrogen, right? And the estrogen ones seem to be a little bit easier to take because you can have a little, well, you should take the birth control pill at the same time every day, but you're going to have a little wiggle room here. Whereas here, you need to be exact, like within a few hours of when you take the pill, you need to take it exact at the same time. Otherwise, you could have issues with ovulation. Okay. So usually that's what they tell you. So again, estrogen levels of ovarian hormones in the blood. So low levels trigger menstruation. Okay. We have the progesterone and estrogen play with the luteinizing hormone. So progesterone and estrogen promote the thickening of the endometrium. So the thickening of the endometrium will lead eventually to the menstrual cycle. But this thickening again is going to be important for the implantation of the potential fertilized egg, right? So you'll have during ovulation, after ovulation, essentially, you have that you'll have the corpus luteum producing these hormones here that allow for the engorgement or the thickening of the endometrium that allow for the implantation of the potential zygote. Okay, so this is where the baby, a quote unquote baby or child, will be implanted into the wall of the uterus, right? So these hormones allow for this to occur. Okay. And again, we'll talk about reproductive health and contraception now. So contraception is a deliberate prevention of pregnancy. So we have a vasectomy, surgical removal of a section of the two sperm ducts to prevent sperm from reaching the urethra, a means of sterilization in the male. So this is what I was talking about earlier. I couldn't think of the word vasectomy for some reason. But this is when they go and they cut the vas deferens. Okay. Yeah, so they'll go in and snip easy, very quick. They'll go in, they'll cut the scrotum and go in with the scissors and snip or tie or surgically impinge those tubes. So there's a couple of different things they can do now. Tube ligation. So this is a means of sterilization in which a segment is removed from each of the woman's two oviducts, and the remaining ends are tied shut, thereby blocking the route of the sperm to the egg. Ooh, excuse me. So again, fertilization occurs in the oviducts. If you remove or tie those oviducts shut, you then lack the ability for those ovaries or the egg to meet sperm. Okay. And this is essentially what you hear about women. They get their tubes tied, and this is kind of a crude uh, um, description of what is actually occurring, where they actually go and they cut, surgically remove, and then seal shut those oviducts. Okay. Intrauterine device. This is a T-shaped device. When placed within the uterus, acts as a female contraception. Okay. So intrauterine device can be two different things. So it can be either hormonal, um, or it could be a heavy metal secretion. So what you'll have is you'll have even like a copper IUD, um, or you'll have a hormonal IUD. And typically, what I've seen more often than not is that that non-hormonal IUD in women. Um, and this can be good and bad. I've seen a couple of different things, a couple of different papers and research on this. Um, and I don't want to deter you, but I'm just going to give you some of the information. So essentially, what this intrauterine device does is it uh, dumps or secretes small amounts of either metal or it changes it changes the condition of the uterus to prevent implantation, which can be kind of scary if you think about it in a way, right? You're changing or you're secreting something in the uterus that doesn't allow for that egg to implant in the wall. Okay. And I believe one was like a copper intrauterine device where it has like a copper metal that, again, will prevent that development or the implantation, a proper implantation in the uterus. Um, it's very good though, it's very effective, but it can change the pH, it can change the microflora. Women may have a different odor afterwards. It might not even be a bad odor, just a different odor in general to the vagina after um, the intrauterine device is placed. But again, there's two different types. There's a hormonal that control the hormones, or you're going to have um, the non-hormonal, which will be that heavy metal or that again, it just changes the chemistry in the uterus to prevent implantation from occurring. But there could be various different changes that also occur on top, various different side effects. That's true for all birth control methods. There's going to be something that changes the um, the chemistry of the body, right? And there are new hormone methods coming out for males as well. So males may be able to take a pill soon to prevent yeah, pregnancy. All right. So birth control pill, this is a chemical contraceptive that inhibits ovulation, regards to follicular development, or alters a woman's cervical mucus to prevent sperm from entering the uterus. Okay. We have condoms, a flexible sheath, usually made within rubber or latex, designed to cover the penis during sexual intercourse for contraceptive purposes or as a means to prevent sexually transmitted infections. We have spermicides. This is a lube or a lubricant, a sperm killing chemical in the form of a cream jelly or foam that works with a barrier device as a method of contraception. Okay. Natural family planning. This is when you time the ovulation of the female in order to work around it, right? There's certain days you're going to have sex, or certain days you're not allowed to have sex. Again, to prevent fertilization of that egg in the fallopian tube. Okay, so natural family planning. We have the morning after pill, which is a birth control pill taken within 3 days of unprotected intercourse to prevent fertilization or implantation. Okay, so again, this is going to be a hormonal based pill. Again, you shouldn't be using the morning after pill as a means of contraception all the time. This should be really for kind of emergencies only. So typically, what you'll see with women that get on birth control, or women that are on birth control, if you go through a certain health services, they will give you morning after pills along with your contraceptive or your pills or your whatever birth control method you're having. Okay, so this is just in case, right? Because this will definitely mess up the hormones and the menstrual cycle for a female. Okay, so you don't want to be taking this every month. It's not something that would be beneficial for you. It hormonally will mess up the woman. Okay, so not good. All right. So sexually transmitted infections, this is a contagious disease spread by sexual contact, also called a sexually transmitted disease. So there's a few of them. Okay. So chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis. These are bacterial infections. So chlamydia is very common in the Central Valley, especially in Fresno. The numbers are quite high. Gonorrhea, not so much, but it's still common enough. And then syphilis, I would say it's pretty rare. Um, and you do see advanced stage syphilis. Again, syphilis can be lethal if left untreated. Uh, and you can treat with antibiotics. So typically with chlamydia, you'll treat with 1 gram of azithromycin. Gonorrhea is a little more involved because there's resistance, so the bacteria has become a little more resistant to antibiotics. Um, and then syphilis, typically what they treat with, and this is the only thing that still works with penicillin, is penicillin, right? Penicillin will treat syphilis, believe it or not. So syphilis does not gain any type of resistance against our modern day antibiotics. So if you ever go to the hospital and well, they have penicillin G, but that's IV. That's through the IV. But syphilis can still be treated with oral penicillin, which is, I think, is crazy because there's really nothing else that can be treated with penicillin. All right, genital herpes, genital warts, AIDS, HIV. These are going to be the viruses, right? So genital herpes or facial herpes. So you see type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is typically what you see with individuals who develop those canker sores or those growths on the outside of their lips. So you do have issues with herpes as well, with infant births, and you have different types of herpes as well. Uh, um, Again, the group of virus contains the cytomegalovirus. It contains simplex 1 and 2, mononucleosis, right? So there are going to be various viruses that are going to be associated with venereal diseases that we don't really mention. We typically refer to herpes as type 1 and type 2. That's going to be that rash or that skin lesion that you see. Um, so you can take antivirals. So I believe they have ganciclovir, and I think that's like the generic drug for, I think it's Valtrex. I remember there's a commercial that always came on and it was like I think it's Valtrex. But ganciclovir again is going to be also one of those antiviral medications that you can take to prevent a flare up of the herpes. Genital warts, there's really no treatment unless you want to burn them off or freeze them off. Okay. Typically, what you'll have is a painless growth in the genitalia. The issues are the ones that you don't, the strains that you don't want are the ones that cause issues for either the penis or the cervix in females, right? Because you can't have cervical cancer or penile cancer caused by those HPV strains that essentially don't, those HPV strains that don't cause the warts. They're causing lesions that eventually will lead to cancers. Okay, so the warts are kind of I guess the warts are gross and bad, but they're not going to be as bad as the ones that are going to cause the eventual cancer to form in the genitalia, okay, or the cervix. Okay, AIDS and HIV. So we haven't talked about this yet, or well, we did talk about it. I'm sorry. So this is again going to target CD4 positive T cells. Again, this limits the immune system from working properly, and eventually will lead to the individual's death. Okay. So Trichomonas vaginalis, this is going to be a protist. This actually swims in the vagina, causes a very, 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 very foul smelling uh, um, discharge in the female. It's incredibly stinky. I've came into contact with this a few times, and it's not a pleasant smell. Okay, and you can take anti-protist drugs. Okay, a woman definitely would know if something's up. Okay, Candida albicans. So this is going to be vaginal yeast infections, as well as you can get yeast infections in the mouth or penile yeast infections as well. Okay, so sometimes if a female has a yeast infection, then they're still sleeping with their partner. The male can develop a rash or irritation on the penis as well. So males, you can get it too. Also, you can get oral thrush, which is candidiasis as well, caused by Candida albicans, and it's essentially you have a yeast infection in your mouth. That is actually commonly seen with individuals with HIV. Okay, that is one of the issues that you'll see. Again, if you have a weakened immune system, you're more likely to develop weird infections that you don't really typically see in healthy individuals. One of those is a yeast infection in the mouth. Um, it's not good. Okay, and it can be quite painful. Okay, all right. So these are those various different organisms. So we have chlamydia, gonorrhea, treponema. This is going to be the syphilis. So this is going to be a corkscrew shape, right? And syphilis swims everywhere. So it's just, that's how it's transferred. It moves very quickly. Neisseria and chlamydia don't. Chlamydia is actually going to be intracellular, so it'll live inside of the cells. Neisseria, again, will here they have these various different. Sorry, my phone's going crazy. We'll have these different pili and fimbriae that can attach to the walls of the mucous membrane inside the vagina or the penis in the urethra. And then here are the different viruses. And Trichomonas vaginalis. You can actually look at this in the microscope and you can see them swimming. So this is one of the cool ones to actually see in the clinical setting because it actually moves around and you're like, oh wow, that's definitely Trichomonas, right? And again, we usually see this in a vaginal swab. And when I mean it stinks. It stinks. It's so bad. It's so bad. This is one of the things that I've even been around a lot of feces and poop, but for some reason Trichomonas really it just bugs me. The smell is just it's very pungent, very very pungent. I can't really even describe it, but it's one of those things. And like I said, I've been around feces. I've been around a lot of different very very stinky things, tissue, necrotic tissue, things like that. But Trichomonas, I don't know what it is. Even on a little swab, it is just super pungent. It's very very stinky. All right, you'll definitely know. Is what I'm saying. So fertilization of by sperm, the shape of the sperm is related to what they do. In other words, form fits function, a theme we've seen many times during our exploration of anatomy. Okay, so here we have the I guess anatomical structure of a sperm cell. So we have the acrosome, the nucleus, mitochondria that produce energy for motility of the flagellum. So these are one of the few flagellated cells in your body, right? So we don't have flagellated cells; we have ciliated cells, right? This mucociliary escalator in your uh, uh, respiratory tract that pushes the mucus up. This is different. This is a flagellum. So this is what you typically see with bacteria. Okay. Um, but the acrosome, again, this is going to be what's dissolving the outside of that egg in order to get in and penetrate. That when that nucleus hits, this is when you have the fertilization event occur, and it's like an explosion. It's like it made it. It's going to implant, and that nucleus is going to um, fuse with the egg's nucleus as well. Okay, so the acrosome and the fusion and the expulsion of anything else is going to ensure that no other sperm cell is going to make it to that egg. Okay, this sperm cell is going to be the only thing that fertilizes that egg. Okay, so here you have again multiple sperm surrounding an egg, which looks kind of scary, almost looks like a bacterial organism, right? So the entry of the sperm, the nucleus into the egg requires several steps. The electron micrograph shows a human egg surrounded by sperm. Only one can make it to. Only one, right? So the sperm touches the egg's jelly coat. The acrosome is actually going to be dissolving that jelly coat. Again, this acrosome contains digestive enzymes, and it's going to force its way through. It's going to swim and push through. The plasma membranes of the sperm and egg fuse. So boom. Once that fusion occurs, this gets shut off. Okay, there's no more egg, or there's no more sperm cells that will enter and fuse, right? Because this will be inappropriate. If you have more than two, you're going to have issues with the fusion, right? So sperm nucleus enters the egg cytoplasm. The sperm and the egg chromosomes intermingle, right, and they become one, right? But once this occurs, once it reaches the plasma membrane, it's almost like a shutter effect. It just stops everything. It shuts everything down, prevents any other sperm cell from entering the egg. Okay. Um, and then boom, you have a fertilized egg. Okay. Early stages of embryo development. Remember, we have a lot of the same. The start, right? You have the cleavage furrow. We have the gastralization or gastrulation, which is going to be the cross section of the different body forms, or the different body, the different body cavities. There you go. You're the endoderm, ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm, right? We're gonna, as humans, have all of those. Okay. Programmed cell death is important for the development, right? So again, this is gonna be our flipper, and then we eventually have the programmed cell death to make the fingertips, right? And this will happen in a second trimester. Okay, and this is important, right? So spina bifida is a condition that results from the failure of a tube of the embryonic cells to properly close and form the spine through the first month of fetal development. Excuse me. So here we have again development with issues in development with cells. Okay, And spina bifida is a very, very serious condition. Um, there are ways to correct this in the uterus, but again, this will be an issue with the cells in the development, right? You want those cells again to have those programmed cell deaths or have the differentiation. Sometimes it doesn't occur, and that child may be at risk for this. Okay, but here you see again the fingertips occurring. This is going to be in the second trimester. Um, so an elephant pregnancy drags on for 22 months. We are 9 months. Dogs and other animals are less. So depending on the organism, we have different gestational periods or different periods or periods of pregnancy. Okay, so not all animals have the same amount of time being pregnant. So pregnancy, the carrying of one or more developing. Oh no, I'm out of time. We can finish this on. Well, maybe we can finish this tomorrow. Maybe I'll finish it tomorrow. Yeah, it's only 9 slides. Yeah, that's fine. That won't be that much. Yeah, I'll end it there. That's one thing people complain about. They said my lectures can drag on, so I'll stop it early. Um, any questions? I will be having. I'll be sending another link for the lab. I just wanted to separate the lab and the lecture out today. So I feel like I'll be talking a little bit about what assignments are going to be opened up in the lab and just about the questions and stuff that are going to be going on today, or that I'm going to be assigning today with this lecture. Okay. So I'll be sending a new link out at 9:45. So 30 minutes. So if you want to go grab coffee, or if you even want to show up, you don't have to. It'll be all recorded and uploaded later. Okay. So I will be sending a new link out at 9:45. Maybe more people will show up. Okay. Well, all right. Let me stop the recording. I did hit record, right? This is. Oh yeah, it is.